Welcome to FRCMedia News for Thursday, July 16th, 2020. I'm Keith Tebow. This week, we get updates on COVID-19 and other issues from Mayor Paul Coogan. The region's Community Foundation gets a new name but pursues the same mission. We introduce you to 3 more Democrats running for Congress. The construction of the local replica of the Vietnam Wall Memorial moves forward. And we preview next week's Durfee graduation. All that and more coming up. The latest now on COVID-19 here in Fall River. During our weekly conversation with Mayor Paul Coogan this morning, we discussed the disparity in reporting the number of cases within the city. The mayor says the process is confusing, and he feels the methods have unfairly targeted the city as a problem area.
I do remember back in whatever it was, March or April, when we were getting 50, 70 a day. So double digits now is still unsettling, but I believe increased testing, the holidays did trigger a jump in our numbers. We do have to keep an eye on it. I haven't been down to the Board of Health yet today, but I will be shortly. I was looking at the numbers this morning on Boston.com and trying to figure out these percentages, and this is a real struggle. Last week, we had a conference call with the Mass COVID Task Force in relationship to cases versus tests. Now, that's 2 separate numbers, believe it or not, because some people could be COVID positive on June 1st, and by June 20th, they may have been tested 3 times. So they were calling it 3 cases, and I was arguing that that's 3 tests, that no one cares about multiple tests. They're concerned about how many cases are in Fall River, how many people, actual people, are walking around Fall River positive. I tried to strengthen my argument by saying that's all people in Fall River care about. They don't really care how many people, how many times some individual has a test. And I think that their numbers in in Boston.com this morning reflect a different kind of reporting where they delineate between tests and cases.
In other city news, the City Council on Tuesday voted to fund another appropriation to pay the city's bills through the month of August as the mayor and the state continue to try to organize a fiscal 2021 budget. Also this week, the council approved a transfer of unused FY 2020 money from the police department into the Department of Community Maintenance to cover costs for trash disposal. Some saw this transfer as taking money away from the police department, particularly during a time when violent and gun crime is on the rise. The mayor says that's not the case. The transfer was an end-of-the-year bookkeeping move.
What had happened was we had 3 police chiefs over my short tenure here at 6 months. And what happened was they were kind of like holding back on hiring people. So there were salaries sitting in the budget. They needed some expenses, and a lot of that money we were getting to them from the CARES Act funds, whether it was PPE or masks or cleaning things or some protective gear. So we were taking money out of the CARES Act to supplement the police budget, EMS, and fire, and that might have triggered a little bit of savings and expenses. But we were telling people we are not putting people on the job that we lay off a month later. So we were sitting tight with the staff we had, which again gave us a little bit of reserves. But that wasn't just police. I think our IT had a savings of over 10%. I think the police amount was like 3% of their total budget that they transferred forward. Fire had a very similar number. Perception in Fall River is reality. I can assure people that we're going to take very good care of our public safety to the best of our ability, and I am not funding any police or fire or EMS. Those people are on the front lines. They've done a 5-star job for us throughout this whole battle, and I'm not going to reward them with a bunch of unnecessary cuts. If there's cuts anywhere in any department, you will get a full breakdown on the necessity for it, what we're looking at, and going forward, citizens will have a perfect read on why things are the way they are. But it will not be because of a transfer at the end of the year that's, quite frankly, automatic. They're all zeroed out. They all come back free cash, and then we disperse.
Even as more of the Commonwealth reopens from COVID-19, there are many local residents still in need of support because they're still unemployed. We spoke to the SouthCoast Community Foundation back in May on their role in creating the South Coast Emergency Response Fund to help local nonprofit organizations who have stepped up to meet the needs of people in our region during the pandemic. President John Vasconcella says to date, the foundation has made 7 award distributions to local social service agencies.
We've raised nearly $5 million in the 3 months that we have been operating the fund. About $2 million of that has come from local residents as well as other foundations throughout the region. And about $3 million has come from our partnership with the Mass COVID Relief Fund, which is chaired by Governor Baker's wife, Lauren Baker. And it's been really a wonderful way to bring philanthropic dollars that often do not find their way down to Fall River and the South Coast region to bring significant amounts. And so just last week, we announced another round. So we've given away a little over $4 million to help local nonprofits as they battle the impacts of COVID.
Vasconcella says the needs of local residents have evolved.
We've seen absolutely a continuing need about food insecurity, particularly as the unemployment impact continues. That there are folks who are seeking out food pantries and other distribution networks who never would have imagined that they would have that need, which is why it's really important. And so many organizations have stepped up to be a part of that. But what we're also seeing, and you're going to see that more and more, particularly as the eviction moratorium ends, is threat of homelessness. And housing insecurity and people being able to pay their rent. So the buckets are still very much food. Close behind that is housing. But we're also seeing issues around mental health. I mean, one of the grants that we made recently that I am so excited about is to the Samaritans of Fall River. And the escalation in the number of phone calls they're getting. And, a lot of it has to do with suicide. A lot of it just has to do with people needing to talk with somebody. But our ability to support that work so that they can actually be there for when our residents and our local and members of our family need someone who can listen is really critically important.
Since the outbreak of COVID-19, we've done our best to keep you up to date on the organizations in our city that are helping people get by. This week, Denise Pumagwaye talks with United Neighbors of Greater Fall River on the work they continue to play.
Right now, we are up to about 300 families we are supporting with not only 2 trays of food from restaurants, but also they're receiving a produce box through the collaboration of Marion Institute, Sid Wainer, and the USDA. So they get a 20-pound produce box, and we do that in rotation to different places because 20 pounds is a lot of produce. You don't necessarily need it every week. And they're continuing to get food through the Greater Fall River Food Bank and Blounce and Gold Medal, and amazing volunteers who are setting everything up outside the Boys and Girls Club. We have tons of volunteers from the different organizations and banks, and it's really, really wonderful. We are still providing lunches for Hearts of Hope to distribute to the homeless folks that are in the streets, and we have enough funding to make this go on until the end of July. Our numbers have increased because there are more families that have someone in the household with COVID-19. The second committee that we have is our Decompression and Education Committee. We have distributed 180 kits to make a home Zen Den, a corner of your home as a relaxation area. And we give you a kit. It has a couple of manipulatives. It has a book about how to do it. We're getting great response, teaching people how to work with their kids, to ground them, to breathe better, to take a moment to relax. United Neighbors have been doing this project in the schools prior to us going into isolation. And we just got wonderful funding from the Bristol County DA and from STAR, and we'll be creating 200 additional Zen Den to go kits, which we'll be able to distribute to families in the community that feel that they could utilize something like that.
We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center. Real estate buyer sales specialist. Fortified Realty Group, located at 16A Bedford Street, has an immediate need for a full-time real estate buyer sales specialist, responsible for consulting with and guiding clients through the entire home buying process. Job number 137-697-68. Accounting clerk. Star, located at 386 Stanley Street, is looking for a full-time accounting clerk to perform basic accounting tasks and provide clerical support to the accounting department. Job number 137-606-38. E-commerce customer experience associate. Matuk, located at 1058 Pleasant Street, is in need of a full-time e-commerce customer experience associate to work with the fulfillment center to manage order inquiries, customer ship dates, returns, and inventory. Job number 137-693-87. Applied Materials is in need of the following full and part-time positions in the Fall River area. Data Science Engineer, job number 137-675-56. Machine Learning Engineer, job number 137-675-63. SouthCoast Health System, located at 263 Stanley Street, also is in need of the following full and part-time positions. Orthopedics Radiology Technologist, job number 137-68106. Recovery Center Registered Nurse, job number 137-68271. For more information on these or other positions, visit Mass Hire JobQuest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. We continue our look now at the candidates running for the Massachusetts 4th Congressional District, seeking to succeed Congressman Joseph Kennedy. This week, we speak with Democratic candidates Becky Grossman, Jake Auchincloss, and Dave Cavell. Becky Grossman is a Newton lawyer with degrees from Cornell and Harvard. She worked as an assistant district attorney in Middlesex County and currently serves as a Newton city councilor. She says her number one job is being a mother to her 8-year-old daughter and 5-year-old son. She says curbing gun violence and eliminating big money from politics should be a priority.
And we know how gun violence has torn apart our communities, and especially communities of color. And we've got to tackle and take on the NRA, and I'm passionate about doing so. Now, hand in hand with that, that also means that we need to get money out of politics, because the only way we are going to be able to take on the NRA is to make sure that we are getting our elected officials to be working for our families and not for powerful special interests. And if we're serious about making progress on the issues we care about, getting money out of politics is necessary to being able to move forward.
Ms. Grossman believes the country should take a deep look at instituting police reform so that all people can feel safe in their community. She supports a strong public option in health insurance and expanded funding and access to quality education. She also believes that all people should have the opportunity to succeed, and that starts with closing the income inequality gap and supporting small businesses.
Well, I think it starts by raising taxes on the wealthiest among us, implementing a progressive tax code, investing in accessible, affordable childcare and universal pre-K, because as I mentioned earlier, we know that the opportunity gap starts at the very beginning, investing in affordable housing and transit-oriented development, and prioritizing small business development, especially for those entrepreneurs who have had the hardest time getting access to capital historically. And by that, I mean women, minorities, veterans, and the disabled. I mentioned earlier how there is this 5 times differential in annual median household income from the north to the south part of the district. One of the commitments that I made early on in this race is that if I'm so fortunate as to be elected, I'm going to have a member of my team whose priority focus is economic development in the South Coast, in the gateway cities, and in those parts of our district that, were struggling coming out of the 2008 recession, never quite really got to the point of being able to catch up, and have been the hardest hit during this pandemic and the health and economic consequences of what we're going through. To me, investing in small business development is a really important priority step to rebuilding our economy and tackling that economic inequality that we're talking about.
Jake Auchincloss was raised in Newton, attended Harvard, and served in the Marines in both Afghanistan and Panama. He returned to Massachusetts and currently serves as a member of the Newton City Council. Mr. Auchincloss says he's running for Congress to restore people's faith in their government. One way to do that, he says, is by making sure all Americans are treated equally.
The first place I start here is a commitment to racial justice and a recognition that we as a country have still so far to go to ensure that regardless of the color of your skin, you are treated fairly by your fellow citizens, and you're treated fairly by law enforcement, and you're treated fairly by the institutions of governance. And this extends beyond police. We have seen recently reports of racial bias in the rental housing industry. We know that it exists across many of the sectors of our life. It's systemic. And so we in Newton are embarked on a great project to rethink public safety through the lens of racial justice. It is a commitment that's going to take an inclusive project, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take sustained dialogue. But we're starting it. I'm proud to have helped quarterback it. I'm proud that we, during budget season, began the process of rethinking public safety by transferring some funds from the police department towards extending library hours and towards funding the task force that's going to re-examine public safety. I think the term defund the police is perhaps a narrower term than what we should be thinking. We should be thinking about reinventing our conception of public safety. We want all of our civil servants across all functions to have the tools and the training they need to be successful and to be able to interact with constituents safely and respectfully. And I think that's going to require starting from the bottom up and thinking about these challenges with a new light.
Mr. Auchincloss believes in a public option in healthcare coverage, rethinking our tax structure to close the income inequality gap, and making sure South Coast Rail becomes a reality as a strategy to ease the effects of climate change. He also believes the opportunity for all begins with a quality education.
We know that education is the pathway to prosperity and a pathway to a better life for kids. We have got to invest in it to the full measure of its potential, and especially at those crucial early years between the ages of 0 and 8. The research is quite compelling. If you get to third grade with a strong foundation of literacy and numeracy, you're set up very well in life. But unfortunately, as a country, we're falling short there. And increased investment for early education for kids and increased support for local school budgets, especially in this downturn, are going to be crucial to make sure that our kids are not giving up another year of education, and our school budgets are not losing a dime that they so desperately need to provide the core service of government.
Dave Cavell was born and raised in Brookline and has a career in government, having worked as a speechwriter for President Barack Obama and an advocate against abusive big businesses for State Attorney General Maura Healey. He says among his priorities is getting serious about dealing with the opioid crisis.
We lose 5 people a day, every single day, today, yesterday, tomorrow, to an opioid overdose. And so when I decided to run for Congress, I promised those families that I would get to work on this as soon as I got to Congress, that I'd get them the aid and the resources that they need, but also get prevention education into our schools. 90% of people who struggle with substance use start using before the age of 18. When I talk to folks on the South Coast and folks in Fall River, they tell me that they don't want to see more treatment centers open. They don't want to see, more people struggling with substance use. They want to create good long-term jobs. And, that's got to be our focus as well. So while we're working on that, let's invest in making the South Coast the national leader in clean energy, the national leader in the clean energy economy. Fall River is the second deepest water port in New England. So to my mind, we got to finish South Coast Rail. We got to invest in the South Coast. We got to make, public colleges and universities tuition free and create pathways to the jobs of the future. So
Mr. Cavell says he supports the passage of the Green New Deal and restructuring of how police serve our communities. He's also in favor of expanded healthcare options and smart ways of bringing financial opportunity to all.
I think it is 100% legitimate for us to ask the wealthiest Americans to pay a little bit more for the social services, the education, and all the other things that we need. So that means I think the estate tax doesn't kick in right now until you have a $22 million estate, which, good for you, but come on. It used to be $7 million when President Bush left office. I think we can go back to that. If you have a $7 million estate, you're still doing pretty well. This would only impact about 14,000 families in this country, but it would help pay for so many of the things that we need to do. And then to the main point of your question, how do we really address income inequality in America? I think we need to recognize that these issues are interrelated or intersectional, if you will. We don't just have an affordable housing crisis in a lot of places in the 4th District. We also have a transportation crisis, right? We haven't completed South Coast Rail. We've been talking about that since the 80s. What are we doing if we're not actually investing in our future? At the same time that we've got a crisis in terms of school funding formulas. We've got a crisis in terms of jobs and economic development in the clean energy economy. We need to recognize that the solving these challenges means solving them together.
If you've been walking on the waterfront near Bicentennial Park, I'm sure you've seen the construction going on Fall River's Replica Vietnam Memorial Wall. Denise Pumagwaye got an update on the construction process.
We have a delay. The delay is as a result of the pandemic, and we're waiting for the granite, and the granite's coming from India. Well, they were shut down just as the United States was shut down, and only recently have gotten back to work in the quarries. So you can understand that a lot of the work is delayed. So now we're told on or about July 17th, they should be shipping the granite here to Fall River and will be placed at the site of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall. It should take about 30 days, so the anticipated time for the granite to arrive is August 15th to 17th. We're hoping for less, but that's the tentative date. Otherwise, we would have had this done by the beginning or middle of August. We've done the irrigation system, we've done the lighting, the electricity, everything that can be done prior to getting the granite here. And the purpose of the granite, obviously, is to lay everything out and be able to put the panels on. There's 144 panels, and we need the granite before we can do anything else. And we've got bricks, we've got everything else ready to go. So with the anticipated delay, we're hoping to be done the end of September. Many of our members wanted to wait until Veterans Day, but we want to leave Veterans Day to veterans. The wall is 380 feet long, 8.5 feet at the pinnacle in the middle, with over 58,000 names. They'll be in chronological order from date of death, starting in 1954.
We'll have more right after this.
Thank you for considering a homeless pet today. I hope you enjoy what you're about to see, and as always, please feel free to contact the shelter before coming down to make sure that the pets you're viewing are still available for adoption. We can be reached at 508-677-9154.
Welcome to Hot Dogs and Cool Cats. Today we have Keegan. Keegan is a little Chihuahua puppy. He's about 26 weeks or 5 months old. He just came back from the vet from being neutered. Keegan is still a puppy, so he's got some growing to do. As you can see, he likes to nibble. A little training could help him get out of that habit. His tail's always wagging, as you can see. He loves to be with people. Anyone who's had puppies or babies is familiar with whining, so they won't be surprised to hear that Keegan loves to whine when he's by himself. If you are someone who loves dealing with puppies and doesn't mind having a shadow who wants to follow you around 24/7, Keegan just might be the friend for you. Hi. So go on over to foreverpaws.com, fill out an application, and then come on down to 300 Linwood Street and say hi to Keegan. Today we have Nilo. Nilo, as you can see, is very handsome. He can sometimes be a little nervous, but once he gets comfortable with you, he's super sweet. He loves attention, loves to rub his head on your hands, loves chin scratches. He's just one of the sweetest guys around. As you can see, he's wearing a cone. He did just go to the vet and get neutered, so he's probably not too happy about that right now. But in the long run, it's the best for him. So if you're interested in this handsome face, check out our website at foreverpaws.com, fill out an application, and then come on down to 300 Linwood Street and say hi.
Finally this week, the class of 2020 at Durfee High School will get the recognition it's due this Tuesday as the school holds its graduation. Durfee High School Principal Matt Damaris tells us once the state changed its requirements on how graduations can be held, the student body voted overwhelmingly to get away from a virtual graduation to a more traditional in-person event. He lays out how this year's graduation will be much different.
The first big change is that it's outside. For the last 10 years or so, we have been in our field house, and certainly we can understand why we're not indoors on this. So we will be out on the Mac Aldridge football field. What we're doing is we're opening gates to the West Main parking lot at 4 p.m. The reason why it's that far out from the start of the ceremony is that it's going to take a little while to get everybody into the stadium and seated. This is, again, because of the construction project. I've lost some parking lots that I have to have a limit of one car per family. Now, the guidelines that the state released certainly make the physical layout of the graduation look different in that we are mandated to have the 6-foot social distancing between all graduates and then 6 feet between all sets of guests. We arrived at a number of 2 guests, and I know that that's a number that has caused some concern for a lot of people. But when you do the math, Keith, we're going to have roughly 1,400 people at this gathering. And so to add a 3rd guest or a 4th guest now puts that number up to 2,000. And we wanted to be sure that we could have a crowd that we could manage and we could have something that would be absolutely safe. So all attendees are going to have to wear masks. They're going to have to be socially distanced. They're going to have to remain seated throughout the ceremony, except unless there's an emergency. There won't be any live music. It'll be recorded music, such as the Pomp and Circumstance, the Star Spangled Banner, and the Durfee Alma Mater. And speeches will be cut a little short, not the kids' speeches. We're going to have the adults cut the speeches a little short. And even the way that we hand the diplomas to the students is going to be a little different, without handshakes and without all of the celebratory contact, let's say, that happens in a traditional graduation.
Congratulations to the Hilltopper class of 2020. A reminder, our Dinner Time with concert series will continue tomorrow with a performance by Steve Rodericks. Check him out at 6 p.m. Friday on Channel 95, as well as on our FRC Media Facebook page. That'll do it for this edition of FRC Media News. Please check out our website, frmedia.org, for our latest coverage of COVID-19, as well as our latest Channel 95 program schedule. This program airs Thursdays at 6 p.m. and Fridays at 5:30 p.m. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday.